What's up, guys? Welcome to the Resellers Podcast with Tech and Sports and Daily Refinement. Thank you so much for joining. This is our Christmas episode, and we're going to give you guys the gift of a $52,000 income for next year. So next year, when you're cozying up to the Christmas tree, you'll have all the skills to build a $1,000 a week income. We've broken it down in this episode, and we're going to give you an overview right now and then get into the episode. So essentially what you're doing is selling 100 items a week at $10 profit. Very straightforward. Depending on what you sell, the size of your store is going to be different. So to give you guys an idea, there's going to be customer service, picking, shipping, photography, listing, sourcing. 100 items a week for me would take just one day. For Tech and Sports, it'd probably take a half day because he's a lot more efficient than me. Right now, our stores are public. I'm doing around 4 times this volume, so about 400 items sold and listed per week right now. And I think Tech and Sports is around 1,500 or 1,600 a week, something like that. He's like 3 or 4 times larger than me. Our stores are public. You can see how we do it. It's the same no matter what category you're in. We sell clothing. I sell shoes and other things for fun also in my store. He's pretty streamlined and just focused, and that's really the secret sauce to building a giant store. So if you need help, we have a podcast and a Facebook group, and right now we're helping over 400 people. So this is patreon.com/the resellers podcast. It's $1 a day. You get live coaching every single Tuesday, and you can join our Facebook group, which is very lively. It's awesome. It's kept me accountable. It's helped me grow my store from 7,000 items to 11,000 items. And we help people set up and give them the skills to actually knock it out. So this episode's about an hour long. As you guys know, the first part of it is on YouTube for free, and the rest of it is on patreon.com as a paid podcast for $5 a month with no ads. So this type of content costs money to produce, so we appreciate you guys and wish you a very happy holiday, and we'll see you guys in the show, and we'll see you guys in the Facebook group. Take care. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Resellers Podcast with Tech and Sports and Daily Refinement. This is our Christmas episode. Thank you so much for joining. Today, we're talking about the best gift that we can give you for Christmas is a listing habit that you can use in 2021 to make the most of your week. And, you know, the basis and sort of the overview is trying to make $1,000 a week or more. And a lot of people have this goal of doing 100 items a week at $10 profit. So we're going to try to break it down for you guys and let you know what you kind of need to do to organize your week. Everyone's schedule is going to be sort of the same, but we figured out it's around 7 hours of work a day. So there is no part-time way to really do this. You're putting in the work in order to get there.
Yeah, definitely. It all depends on like how much experience you have and how many brands you have in that picker Rolodex that we kind of talk about from time to time. So the more skilled you are, the more time you have in the game, the less time you can spend doing this and make the same amount of money in less time or make more money in the same time.
So when it comes to sourcing, we were thinking, okay, if you're picking 10 items an hour for 10 hours, you would get your 100. So you could either go every single day, or you could do a 1-day mega route and go crazy. Let's talk about the going every single day. You did that for a while.
Yeah, I did that for a very long time. I would have different routes on different days, and I would have a 7 day a week route. At the peak, it was 45 stores. So I'm lucky I live in, a pretty populated area. So literally within 5 to 7 minutes of my house, there's a cluster of 4 or 5 thrifts. So I had that as one route. And then the furthest route was on Saturday, and that was about 45 minutes from my house. And then, I would hit a cluster of 6 or 7 over there. So it all depends on where you live. And I guess, if you're working a full-time job or not, that's going to dictate what your sourcing schedule is going to be. Because I know some people in the group, for instance, there's a guy who lives in Nebraska who has to travel very, very far to pick. Even Monica Poshhanger, she has to travel up to your neck of the woods to source. So that's not something she could do every single day with California traffic. So she does one mega route on Wednesday. So I know I did try the mega route, but it was way too hard to stay focused for so long. And like, man, you can only flip through like maybe 10,000 hangers before you just say like, I've had enough of this. So I did try the mega route a couple of times, but the going out every single day was the best for me.
And this is when you go out every single day, I feel like if you are the person that has a type of route, you're going to give yourself an opportunity to run into things because you'll start to recognize how the stores are organized. People will start to recognize you, but that doesn't happen the first time you try your route.
No, because I think it's better to go every single day on a different like sub route of your main route. Because what if you had 1 day mega route and you were 10 minutes behind, a next skilled thrifter, and you can almost get skunked that day because you're 10 minutes behind some other guy. So if you were going every single day on, different smaller routes, it's a lot harder to get skunked and it's way easier to, have consistency and always pull, quality items that you need.
And I also want to point out that there's a lot of different ways to source, but the further away you are from the source, the less likely you're going to get a home run. If you were to actually hit 45 thrift stores, it's virtually impossible to not run into a few $100 plus items.
Yeah, definitely. And to build your business based on home runs or grails is very difficult to do. Some people do it, they try to do it, but as we all know, those bread and butter items, the $20 to $30 items are very plentiful, and that's what you build your business on. And the home runs is extra, but if you try to build your business on home runs, it's very, very difficult to do that.
If you look at somebody's store and all of their ASP is above 50, usually the store is tiny and it's difficult for them to get any traction because any fluctuation in the market means people's pocketbooks tighten up and you're not making any sales during that time.
And something we talked about when we very first spoke, you want to have as many hooks in the pond as possible. And a store that has a higher sale price, most often than not, it's going to be a smaller store. They're not going to have 5,000, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000 home runs in a store. Like, I haven't seen that store that thrifts that has 10,000 home run items. Maybe it's out there, maybe it's not. But, as a person who does sell a lot of stuff per year, I will tell you, even at my brick and mortar store, the home runs or the grails, I will sell thousands and thousands of bread and butter items before someone will step up and buy that home run item. So, home runs are nice, but the bread and butter pays the bills. It's not glamorous, but that's the reality.
And it's something to think about while you're there. As you build up more brands, you'll recognize items that sell right away, maybe not for a lot, but they increase your velocity. If and remember, we are in the retail business. Doesn't matter what category, it doesn't only apply to clothing. If you look at, let's say, Marshalls or TJ Maxx or Home Goods, these stores have everything: clothing, home goods, shampoo, makeup. But if you look at what people are holding when they're waiting in line, it's all $7.99, $9.99, cheap items. They make their money because people buy more than one item. They're not going in there to buy a Michael Kors watch for $200. That's extremely rare.
Yeah, and I've even had people that have talked to me and told me and say like, I can't find anything at the thrift, and I see you always finding a lot of stuff. And I say, well, what are you looking for? And they say, oh, the single stitch, the vintage. And I'm like, what else? And they're like, oh, that's it. And I'm like, well, I'm hitting button ups. I'm hitting, men's shirts, off the shirt, shorts, pants, polo shirts, jackets, sweaters, jerseys. So that's why I leave with an overflowing cart, and you're in and out of the thrift in 42 seconds and find nothing. So it all, like, I'm not above selling a Tommy Bahama shirt, but there are people that only want to sell vintage single stitch shirts. But like, at the end of the day, you can sell single stitch vintage shirts and you can sell a handful, or you can broaden your horizons and sell tens of thousands of items per year.
I'm going to give one more example. There's a lot of people who flip sneakers at the Nike outlet and they go and they look for the grails, and you'll see their stores have 100 items in them, 50 items in them. It's hard to find it. The people who really make money at the Amazon, I'm sorry, at the Nike outlet are the people that are flipping the 10, $20 profit items at huge volume. Those are the people that are buying 600, 700 pair a time. It is not for beginners.
No.
There's so much capital required to do
And
that.
again, like, flipping a pair of shoes for a 10 or a $20 profit, you're talking about maybe a basic woman's runner that that gets
That's
you
right.
no clout on Instagram. So like you can either go for Instagram clout or like you can go for dollar bills. So like a lot of people get caught up in Instagram clout, and like I'll say it because this is the free portion of the podcast. A lot of people go to my brick and mortar store and I know what they pay for items, and then they go on Instagram for clout, but like they're not making any money on those items. Like I'm the one who made money on those items. So like get out of the Instagram clout, get out of like trying to be popular and like build a business and make real money. So like there's no clout, me showing off finds, like there's none of that. Like build a business, make money, and have that be your representation. Like the Instagram clout and showing off grails and stuff, you don't make no money in that business, and I see it every single day.
No, I hear you. And the guys that are selling the runners, paying 30 and selling for 45 free shipping or 50 free shipping and making that $5, but they're doing that 600 times.
Right.
So when you look at it, you got to understand the margins are tiny, because you'll hear that I don't flip anything unless I make 10 times my money. And that is not that is a toxic mentality.
It's tough. And the reason why you can only make $5 or $10 on that shoe is because it's a highly desirable shoe. And not only one guy is smart enough to sell them. So like he's got to compete with the next guy who also wants to sell 600 of that shoe. So like, you know, it's not glamorous, it's not fancy, but at the end of the day, it pays the bills. Your cash flow continues, and you're able to build a business. So, for instance, this week at my store, I sold a Tupac shirt for $1,200. Might be the most expensive shirt that I've ever sold, t-shirt wise, but it took maybe 4 months to sell the shirt. So for that $1,200, if I went out and bought $5 items for that $1,200, I could buy 240 items. If I buy non-glamorous items that I can make $20 off of, I make $4,800. If I do that again and buy $5 items, I can get 960 items, make $20 off of those, and then I made almost $20,000 from that $1,200 buying $5 items that are most common, that are found every day in any thrift store across America. If I take that $1,200 and go out and buy four $300 shirts that I got to wait another 4 months to try to sell for 400 or 500, looks great, looks awesome on Instagram, but like the other guy just made 20,000 bucks by the time you sold those four shirts. So it all depends on what model you want and what you really want to do.
So this is really important to understand, because we are talking about sort of a full-time schedule for people. And with this full-time schedule, most people source for about 10 hours. There's a lot of other things involved with reselling. Reselling is not shopping. That's only part of it. Looking for items is literally only a quarter or less of the actual time involved. When you look at Instagram, unfortunately, it doesn't explain all the different steps getting it to that final sale. It just shows I found it for $1 and sold it for 100, and it skips all the steps in between.
Yeah, and if you do it every day, there's plenty of steps. You gotta, prep it, take photographs, take measurements, list it, store it, customer service, returns. Make sure your account is healthy. You gotta pay taxes. You gotta, there's a lot that goes into that $100 sale. Even though you did get it for $1, like calculate all of your overhead, and you'd be highly surprised how much that 1 to 100 gets you.
So we are going to talk about listing 15 items a day, which is what a lot of people aim for. If you're just getting started, or if you sell items that are completely different, I would say like 5 an hour is a very normal pace. And so that's 3 hours a day of just photographing the item, listing it, measuring it, describing it. There's ways to definitely streamline that process. Maybe we can talk about that first. So this would be actually more time than shopping for most people at 5 items an hour. What would you say? Like it, how would you try to help somebody list quicker than 5 an hour? And how do you approach this?
5 an hour, the biggest, most important key is developing that Rolodex of brands in your head, so that way you don't have to research every single item that you're selling, because a lot of people can get crippled by research. And if you're trying to find an exact comp on a shirt, you can spend an hour trying to look for the right item, so you know how to price your item accordingly. So the faster and the quicker and the better you can have a memory of past items that you sold, that's going to be the best way to speed up your listing. So if you can cut out the research, that's going to get you a long way. And there's a lot of other ways to streamline it. You can we talk about it in the group all the time, how to streamline photos, how to have a good setup. So for my setup, for instance, we're literally on a 1 by 1 padded rug, and that's where we stand. Like, it's 1 square foot, and we take all of our photos in there. There's no wasted room walking around, taking steps, going back and forth, none of that kind of stuff. We implemented taking measurements in the photos, so I don't have to have a dedicated measuring step, because that alone was taking probably 2.5 hours to measure 250 items. So we eliminated that step. And then for the listing process, we're selling similar. We're crafting perfect listings. So that way, when we sell similar, it's very minimum the amount of items or the amount of things that we have to change in the listing. And, just by little tweaks here and there all along the way, they add up to big gains at the end of the day.
This is important to understand because I was just talking to a gentleman in the group that sells East African art. And he was saying you can't just sell in his category. You would have to take half an hour to an hour to research every single item. You don't know what it takes to actually ship that item without it breaking. You wouldn't be able to answer any of the questions. And he said the reason why everyone in this category is so successful is because they know that niche really well. And so when you do that with any category, you will have a huge advantage because no one will be able to build a store to that size because it takes too long. He showed me 2 stores that sell East African goods, and it was extremely difficult. You had to know what tribe, what the colorway was. You can't just step into that game. And he was showing me only 5 sellers make 80% of the sales. And it makes sense to me because they've got the streamlined template. This is the tribe. This is the colorway. This is how it's shipped. This is where you put it in your house. They explain it to the customer. You can't do that if you are in too many categories. You can't give the customer an experience that's way better. This is why when you get the question, should I measure clothing? Think about the buyer.
Yeah.
They don't know. They've never touched the item and they can't try it on.
Yeah, it's really the best way that you can do it, and just expecting the buyer to buy it blindly when the next listing is going to provide those measurements and take that extra step. They're going to get way more sales because they did take that to get the measurements. But talking about the East African art, if there's 5 sellers that make 80% of the sales, like if that guy dedicates his life for the next year or year and a half or 2 years and rigorously studies that craft, then that's an easy category to disrupt, because he can become the 6th guy to get 80% of the sales, and that's a huge market share, as opposed to like being an expert on clothing. You'll never be able to get a 20% market share in the clothing game on eBay. It's impossible. So like, that's a great category to be in if you really want to dedicate your education. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And looking at his experiences, he was doing it in the galleries in person.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, okay, I want to try to translate this into an online store. And I want people to remember, most entrepreneurs are not Mark Zuckerberg. The normal entrepreneur is someone who did something their whole life and for somebody else. And then when they're 50 years old, they saved a couple $100,000 and they open their own. That's the normal entrepreneur. Right now on the internet, it sounds like anyone can be an entrepreneur if you just get a CEO's name tag. But you're not really a subject matter expert, and that's going to reduce the time, because for me, after looking at my processes, they're not fully streamlined. It's only taking me 3 minutes to list an item and photograph it. Compare that to 15 minutes an item for something I've never listed before. It's impossible to make up that time difference.
And compare that to a guy who has listed hundreds of thousands of items, and I think I'm around like 1 minute and 2 seconds to 1 minute and 4 seconds per listing. So that's just because like I've banged my head against the wall hundreds of thousands of times, and everything in my setup is as perfectly streamlined as possible. But that doesn't happen overnight, and it takes a long time and a lot of work to get there. So you've already cut down your time drastically since I met you.
If you'd like to keep listening to this podcast, you'll have to subscribe at patreon.com/the resellers podcast. Our podcast is ad-free on Patreon. You get full access to all of our full-length episodes and subscriber-only perks, like a free monthly coaching Zoom call for only $5. Nobody does that. So we're literally offering free coaching for $5 on the first Wednesday of every single month. If you join the Facebook group, you get that same coaching every single week. So subscribe now at patreon.com/the Resellers Podcast. And in that, we also have a Facebook group that is dedicated to helping you guys build a 6 or 7 figure business. Both of us have been doing this for a long time, and we're helping over 400 people do that. So join us in the group, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you for listening.